Let's go to Rick in Santa Clara. Rick, what's happening?
I'm glad you brought him up because he's a great. I mean, Ricky Henderson's someone I think is in the top 10.
Rick,
Hello?
what's happening?
Yes, what's up, Rick?
Hey, I want to first of all say, Bonte, way to get lean, man. I'm proud of you. And
Thank you.
Cassie, I love your passion. You bring it every day, man.
Thank you.
Now, some criticism, not necessarily of your show, but I feel there's been some romanticizing of Jordan Poole. And look, you guys, I watch every Warrior game like you do. I've never been so frustrated with the player watching this last year than Poole, and I'll tell you why. Number one, he's allergic to defense. He gets worse this year than he was before. With Kerr, we saw incremental improvement defensively, where he's not a sieve right now. Poole was just brutal. Number two, he didn't fit the offense. He would not move the ball. The ball stuck with him, and it's going to stick with Paul, but unlike Poole, at least Paul will make people better, like Alexander that we see in OKC. And I'm just so glad Poole is gone. He didn't read the room. You know, Curry throwing his mouthpiece. You know, Clay being upset with him after the trip in the preseason. And look, Draymond shouldn't have cold cocked him, but he did. I think we're going to be better without him. Now, is Paul going to get hurt? Probably. But we'll have flexibility after this year.
Yes.
I'm just so glad I don't have to watch Jordan Poole every night. He was just so difficult to watch, guys. I'd love your thoughts.
I would file him under one of, like, similar to Jimmy Garoppolo, one of the most frustrating players I've ever watched.
Who's that?
Jordan Poole.
Last year?
Because I knew he had talent. Same thing with Jimmy G. I knew he had talent. But, God, he would just make these mistakes that you're like, how do you do that? How? Like, I think two of the more frustrating athletes I've had watching, like, I don't think Brandon Belt's that great. I don't think his natural ability was that great. Like, in all-time, not that Jimmy Garoppolo has all-time talent or that Jordan Poole has all-time talent. I think they were both more talented in their sport than what Brandon Belt was in his, if you look around the league. And yet, Poole and Jimmy G frustrated the absolute crap out of me.
Oh, boy, compared.
Because they were good. They would show you flashes of brilliance, and then they would do the dumbest things you would ever see.
I did not have you comparing Poole and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Because I think they would give you a mixed
After
bag. Would they not?
Poole to start last
But would they not?
Wow.
Would they not?
Jimmy Garoppolo was a lot worse. A lot worse than Jordan Poole.
But wouldn't I don't know, man. You get the
Jordan Poole still dropped to 20 a game.
It felt like the way the playoffs shook down for Jimmy Garoppolo is the same way this year's playoffs shook down for Jordan Poole. The longer it went, the less reliable and the less like every time Jimmy dropped back in the playoffs, like, oh God, what's he going to do? And every time Jordan came flying up the court with the ball, everyone was thinking the same thing. Dear God, what's he going to do?
Now, Dumas dropped the nugget on this show at 6:50. I guess it's making the rounds on Bleacher Report or whatnot. Jason Dumas says something that nobody has really touched on in this market.
What's that?
And I want to replay this answer. It's a long one. But I want to replay this because there's something to this. There's something we haven't really sunk our teeth into with this answer from Jason Dumas on Jordan Poole and Steve Kerr.
I honestly think the relationship between him and Steve was more of what got him traded than the relationship with him and Draymond Green. I just think Steve was kind of fed up with the fact that Jordan was kind of huffing and puffing that he wasn't in the right role for him. And I think that had more to do with him being moved than that punch. No, the punch didn't help, and his and Draymond's relationship wasn't great. But I think Steve was more fed up than anything.
So that's Dumas right there. Steve was more fed up with Poole, and Poole was fed up with Steve Kerr.
So if we were weighing these things, you're saying that Steve was the reason he's not here, Steve was most frustrated with his play or whatever.
And his demeanor, attitude, play, all that stuff.
Chemistry, locker room
exactly.
stuff.
And so if that is the case.
I think it's a combination of all of them.
If that is the case, though,
yeah.
If that at the end of the season, it was more of an issue between Steve Kerr and Jordan Poole as it was to Draymond Green. And the Draymond Green stuff subsided, and then it became about Poole and Kerr, and they didn't get along. Basically, the Warriors picked the coach over the player.
It's the reverse of Weber.
And a lot of NBA guys, current players, former players, former execs, always say, you always take the player over the coach.
When the player's your best player.
When the player's your best player.
I don't think Poole's their best player.
He's
So I
not
think
your
there's a
best player.
distinction. I think
But
there's
he was
a
supposed to be the guy who was the heir apparent. He was supposed to be the guy.
As the heir apparent?
He was supposed to be the guy who was going to carry the torch. Steph Curry talked about it.
Yeah, but
hey, this is the guy who I'm going to. When I leave, we're going to leave this organization. This is what the players said.
I know, but
not
I
what
never
we
bought
feel.
that.
Not what we feel. But Jordan Poole was a guy who mixed in with the veterans. He was the guy that helped the veterans win a championship. He was a guy who averages 17 points a game in his first ever postseason and was one of the guys, the foundational six. He was one of the foundational six with the core three, Looney, Wiggins, and it was Poole.
Yeah.
He was one of those. He was your top six player.
Like, because I guess similarly it would be like Steve Young taking over for Montana or T.O. taking over for Jerry Rice or however you want to view it. I don't think I put Poole in that category.
But
I didn't.
But
maybe they did. I didn't.
Do you pick a coach over a player if that's the case?
I think
that's basically what the Warriors did here. If Dumas, what he's saying, because I believe Dumas is tapped in. And I also heard it from Logan Murdoch at draft night. We were having a conversation, and he said something very similar that was more so between Steve and Poole. And we heard Steve go on Draymond Green's podcast and basically insinuate that the young players, guys who are moping, guys who are not happy about playing time, guys who are not happy about their roles. And he was admiring the Miami Heat because those guys bought in and his youngsters didn't. And obviously he was talking about Jordan Poole. So basically what the Warriors have done here is basically said, you know what? We're riding with the coach instead of the player, despite the player being a damn good one. Jordan Poole's a damn good player. I know he had a rough year. He's a good player. It's a very good player.
How many teams right now is Jordan Poole the best player on?
Not many.
Okay.
Not many.
So to me, that's a very
But is he a top two
thing.
On Washington right now? Is he a top two player?
Yeah, on Washington. On this team, he's not.
On Boston, would he be a top three player?
Okay, fine.
What do you mean? Okay.
Yeah, but on this team, he's not. Like that I think that matters. I think this situation being what it is matters. I do think it matters.
During that championship run, we all agree Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins were your top two players.
Yes.
Who's the third most important player?
That changed night to night. Some night it was Clay. One night it was Looney. One night it was Jordan Poole early on. But I think by the end of it, he was probably when I'm talking about the Celtics series, and he had his moments. Fourth, fifth, sixth.
Okay.
Fourth, fifth, sixth.
He's a top two player. I'd say in half the league.
Yeah, see, to me, then that would tell me talent over tolerance. I don't think his talent was good enough to tolerate.
Okay.
If we're talking about Kerr, like Kerr's better at what he does than what Poole does at what he does.
I respect that opinion.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
I respect that.
Because this is making it out like I don't like him. You know I like Poole.
But the old adage in the NBA is you always take the player over the coach. And essentially here, if that's the case that Poole and Kerr soured.
You take the player over the coach when the player is one of the clear-cut best players in the league.
This guy has a lot of talent. He's 23 years old, dropping 20 a game in a very shortened role coming off the bench. Giving you 20 a game.
If I reversed it and I said to you, the kid Maxey in Philadelphia or Tyler Hero in Miami, you're going to pick the coach over. I mean, you're going to pick the player over those coaches?
I'm taking Spoelstra over Hero. I'm taking Maxey over Doc Rivers. I'm taking Maxey over Nick Nurse any day of the week. Tyrese Maxey's a hell of a player.
He's a really good player.
Hell of a player.
I mean, you're not taking over Spoelstra. Like that's what I'm looking
Tyler
at.
Hero, but I don't think that highly of Tyler Hero.
Well, that's how most people don't think of Jordan Poole.
Do the Warriors make the finals last year without Jordan Poole?
Probably not.
The Miami Heat just proved to you that they can make the finals without Tyler Hero.
Yeah, but that wasn't in their blueprint. Their blueprint was playing Tyler Hero.
They made the finals without him.
That you're being a consequentialist. All right.
No.
Just because it happens doesn't mean it's true. Hey, we won with Cody Ross. That doesn't mean that was the blueprint.
Tyler Hero, by the time the bubble finals came around, was unplayable for the Miami Heat.
And so was Jordan Poole.
The year before, last year, Tyler Hero was unplayable for the Miami Heat. They just advanced to the NBA Finals as a playing team without Tyler Hero.
But you
the
have
Warriors do not make.
I know, but you can't tell me Curry's the most important, and the only thing that matters is Curry and Curry.
I just asked you,
Draymond and Clay.
I just asked you whether or not the Warriors will make the NBA Finals without Jordan Poole.
I don't think they would have.
And they sure didn't this year without him, right?
No, but he didn't even play either.
They sure didn't make it without him. So. I'm just saying, Tyler Hero, I don't think that highly of him. The Miami Heat just proved to you that, do we really need Tyler Hero? That's why they're trying to trade. That's why they're trying to trade him away now. And Portland's like, we don't want Tyler Hero.
They have Anthony Simons.
The Portland Trailblazers is like, yeah, we're good off that.
But I'm confused. Are you
Why are you
saying
confused?
that they should have taken Jordan Poole over Steve Kerr?
I'm just saying the old
you were
adage is
so high on the CP3 thing, so I'm just confused.
No, I'm high on that, but I'm saying if that's the problem, no, you're misconstruing what I'm saying. You're not following me here.
I know I'm not.
The old adage in the NBA is we always take the player over the coach because it's tough to find good players. It's tough to find talent in the NBA.
Like Popeye Jones over Phil Jackson.
No.
You know what I mean?
Okay, all right.
So that's what I'm saying. I think it matters.
Is Popeye Jones Jordan Poole?
No,
Jordan Poole's a much better player than
Jordan
Popeye
Poole's
Jones.
closer to Popeye Jones than he is Steph Curry.
Oh my God, Steph Curry is one of the greatest of the greats.
But
Jordan Poole's is Jordan Poole
on.
a top 50, top 75 player in the league right now?
Is Jordan Poole what?
A top 50, top 75 player right now.
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. What Poole am I getting? I don't know. Like in the playoffs last year, he couldn't even crack the rotation for the Warriors. He wasn't even a top 7 player for the Warriors
last year
in round 1 and 2.
Maybe that's because of the rift between the coach and the player.
Well, that's sure. But like again, if you're asking me, and I'm not even the biggest Steve Kerr fan, could do no wrong guy. Like that's not even who I am. But like in this circumstance, I think that it matters the pecking order of where Jordan Poole is versus the pecking order of where the core 3 are and where Steve Kerr is. And because of those nuances, yeah, peace, Jordan Poole. Like, I get it.
Right.
And there's also the ramifications of the salary cap and the movement and all that different stuff. So,
because it sounds like to me, if the rift was between Steve Kerr and Jordan Poole by the end of the season, basically the organization said, we're riding with Steve. And obviously the money plays a factor. But if Steve and Jordan didn't have a rift, don't you think Steve would have done everything in his power to keep Jordan Poole on his team? Steve had no problem going on Draymond's podcast and airing out their
I don't think Steve has the equity built up like he does with the other guys. I'm sure that he appreciates
Mike Dunleavy Jr. has worked this offseason to make Steve happy.
No, I'm saying with Poole, I don't think Kerr and Poole ever had the chemistry, the equity. I clearly they didn't get along as much as the other guys. Like I think that's pretty obvious.
That's all I'm saying. A lot of NBA guys.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. What I started, my point was, the old adage in the NBA is when you talk to players, current and former players, they say, NBA circles, you never take the coach over the player. You never take the coach over the player because players are hard to replace. And Jordan Poole, my point is, Jordan Poole's a very good player.
Okay, so are you frustrated that they did this?
No. You're missing my point.
What?
Marco Marin. You're missing the whole point.
Yeah,
Marco Marin.
I'm going to have to give you guys both a timeout.
That's the whole point.
In the opposite corners of the room. But, hey, with respect to Poole, look, it was his lack of consistency, I think, that did him in, as well as, the other locker room antics. But I think the Warriors were doing this, too, to all the other young players, to maybe a little, message to Kuminga, too, to, hey, be advised, like, if you don't get in line with where we want to go with this culturally, we're going to move in a different direction. I think that was part of the reason, too. That's just my thoughts on that.
My whole point was, Dumas said, if we could play the clip again, he said the rift was between Steve Kerr and Jordan Poole by the end of the year. It was more so Steve Kerr than it was Draymond Green. And so now with Jordan Poole going to Washington and you factor in the contract, basically what the Warriors said was we're siding with Steve Kerr over Jordan Poole, and we can live without Jordan Poole as opposed to Steve Kerr. And what I'm saying here is that a mistake? Because a lot of players, a lot of former players, a lot of current players, a lot of executives always say, and you brought up Weber, the biggest mistake the Warriors made was they picked Don Nelson over Chris Webber. And I get it, Chris Webber is a far greater player than Jordan Poole is. Now, we'll see where Jordan Poole's career plays out. We see how it plays out. I don't know if he's going to ever be Chris Webber.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is. I really don't. We'll see how Jordan Poole's career plays out. But basically, the Warriors picked Steve Kerr over Jordan Poole. And that can have long-term ramifications.
There's no doubt.
And so that is basically a no-no in NBA circles, taking a player or picking the coach over the player. That's all I'm saying. That's my whole point. It's my whole point.
Well,
so I'm not saying I'm not mad at that. I'm asking the question, is that going to bite the Warriors in the ass?
Well, I mean, it might if he ends up having a Hall of Fame career. But what I'm saying is that given everything that we know, I think they made the right assessment.
All right, that's all I was asking.
And so I'm asking.
I'm not saying I'm
what's
not
your
mad
feel
at
on
that. My feel on that is like, wow, I didn't think about it like that until Dumas said it, and that could have long-term ramifications if you take the coach over the player. And let's be real, Steve Kerr last year, did he have a great year coaching?
No.
Are you high on Steve Kerr's X's and O's?
Not really. But I think that he's earned more leeway than Jordan Poole has, and I think he's more established than what Jordan Poole is. And I think given how difficult it is to construct a roster around the people that they've married themselves to, like they were left with very few options to get better, and this is one of the few options to get better.
So that's all I was saying. I'm not mad either way or the other. I like the Chris Paul fit. I've said that from day one. I'm not going back on that. Just because I said, oh boy, they picked the coach over the player, that could have long-term ramifications.
But doesn't the status of the player within the league and within the team matter when you're making those decisions?
Jordan Poole is a very important player on this basketball team. Very important. You don't go to the NBA Finals without him last year.
So then let's have
we all forget about that.
Okay, so Steph's more important than him, right? Let's just
of course, Steph's one of the greats.
Well, we all agree. That's one. Is Wiggins more important than Jordan Poole?
He became more important than Jordan Poole, no doubt.
So that's two. Now here's where it gets tricky. Is Clay more important?
You tell me.
I think
you want to Poole to start over Clay. You tell me.
You know, I went back and forth on that. I feel like they've already determined it for me, so I'll bend to them and say that Klay Thompson is more important than Jordan Poole. So that's three people more important. What about Draymond Green?
That's debatable, right? Was Draymond Green more important during that championship run than Jordan Poole?
I think they went back and forth. I think at times Jordan Poole was more important. I think at times Draymond Green was more important.
So you just flip a coin in,
but then I think when it got to the finals, I would probably lean Draymond Green.
Draymond Green got benched for the most important stretch in the NBA Finals.
I know.
He got him benched for the most important stretch in the NBA Finals.
And then about Kevon Looney, I think Kevon Looney right now is more important to given all of the other roster deficiencies they have. So you can make the argument 4 or 5 guys are more important right now on this team than it is to Poole, and I don't think that's being disrespectful. So knowing that, if you're saying Hall of Fame, top 15 coach of all time, or the 5th most important guy on the team, I'm siding with the coach in this circumstance.
It's also we understood what Jordan Poole's importance was this past postseason. By him not playing up to his capabilities, the Warriors got bounced in 6 by the LA Lakers and got taken in 7 by the Sacramento Kings. If Jordan Poole is Jordan Poole we have from the season ago, the Warriors are playing the Nuggets. The Warriors may be in the NBA Finals. So Jordan Poole's importance, obviously, on this basketball team was a lot greater than what we're making it out to be. That's all I'm saying.
That I will agree with.
That's all I'm saying.
But I also think he left a lot to be desired, and that takes the culpability away from his poor play. And he's also not guarding Anthony Davis. There's no guarantee, even if he plays excellent, that you're slowing down or stopping Anthony Davis.
But offensively, he's taking some stress off of Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry.
Totally agree.
And Andrew Wiggins are picking up the slack. That's all I'm saying.
But that might not have been redeemable moving forward, and that might have been the calculation that they created.
Maybe if Jordan Poole balls out, you get more for him in the offseason. Maybe you get more than just Chris Paul. Maybe you get more than just, hey, we got to trade away Ryan Rollins and JP and some draft picks just to get 38-year-old Chris Paul. Changes everything. So I think Jordan Poole's importance was magnificent on this basketball team. Now, a pecking order, obviously it all starts with Stephen Curry. Andrew Wiggins, you need his two-way play. But after that, boy, Jordan Poole's right up there.
I don't think it's as simple as it's the coach or the player. I feel like it's the coach, the core, then the player. You know what I mean? Like, I hear Dumas, and I don't dismiss it. I'm absolutely sure Steve Kerr was very influential in all of these moves because it feels like they've shaped the roster in his direction. But I also think all of these guys, Curry at the top of the list, are signing off on these things.
Yeah, I do. Steph Curry definitely signed off on CP3. All right, we got